to a seven-time champion. Federer ahead 7-5
to 5.
Oh, I don't believe that.
Thomas, hi, we're going.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tomasz Menzinger. I'm the founder of Field Tennis Net. And today we have a Grand Slam tennis lesson, which is about how to raise your game at the critical moment. And with me is my good friend, Mark Jeffrey. Mark Jeffrey is the brain and the steam engine behind the Gladiator Tennis program. And with his 40 plus years of experience of tennis, having been the Army tennis champion numerous times, he knows what it takes to win and what those little details are that separate the winners from losers. Mark is on a quest to uncover all the tactical and mental secrets that tennis champions possess, and is developing training methods and drills that help every tennis enthusiast to raise their game at critical moments, as long as they follow the training methods in the Gladiator Tennis course. So Mark, based on your many years of experience as a tennis player, and having been in direct contact with the Army and the Air Force training that is trying to accomplish the exact same thing, namely doing your best when it matters most, can you explain what happens when the big point is about to happen? How is that different to a regular point, and how do you train for it?
Very simple questions, Thomas.
Yes.
And at every Grand Slam, you would have heard every commentator, the closer it gets to the finals, going, ooh, they're playing with so much relaxation and freedom at such tension. How do they do that? This guy's a big point player. They always raise their game.
Exactly.
And nobody ever says, and here is how you can train for it.
Yes.
We all train about playing better. Very few train to win better, and nobody trains how to win under the conditions of risk, danger, and pressure. And if you think about it logically, as you and I have done, it's kind of, well, what's the point of spending the hundreds and thousands of hours to play the ball better against an equal opponent? And we're now coming to where it counts, and nobody's trained how to step up a gear and narrowly win and get the ecstasy, rather than, if you're lucky, play the same level, and if you're unlucky, play worse than your level, and you get the agony of the narrow loss. So that was our quest.
Yes.
And I think, first of all, to characterize the big point, the big point only occurs when there's been a long, tight and close match and you're now coming to the end. And we see time and time again, and Grand Slams is just, the visible outcome, when the plucky challenger plays against the established winner and they have a ding-dong battle and the commentators are going berserk, how the supposed underdog, but the underdog might be ranked top 10 against a top 4 or a top 50 against a top 10. And inevitably, it seems, nearly every single time, even if the winner is looking down the barrel the wrong way, the winner finds a way to win and the plucky challenger finds a way to lose. It happened recently at the Cincinnati Masters. Dimitrov was 5-2 up and serving in the third set. And even then, this was against Murray, and even then you kind of thought, well, I'm not sure he's going to do it, but Murray's probably going to win. And he did. Yes. So the whole training is about, at these moments of truth, how can you raise your game to play better than your best and win? And when you and I were doing this, Thomas, it occurred to us, there was, and we did a lot of, we won't go into the full training in our research, but a lot went into it. And halfway through, we realized that apart from the vitalness of training people how to win those 2, 3 or 4 shots in a match, there's about 50% of the points in a match, according to Brad Gilbert, that are in our terminology, tipping points, which you look back after the match and say, yeah, that's where the match slipped away from me, or that's where I gained momentum. So the difference between a big point and a tipping point is that at a big point, you have no choice. Your mind and body is automatically driven into a very abnormal operating condition that you never practice in. So when it occurs to you in a match, you're doing your best, you're reacting, you're being spontaneous.
You're coping.
You're coping, surviving.
Yes.
You're not embracing it and here's what I'm trained for and now I can kick on.
Yes.
But the point is, it's external pressure, risk and danger that's applied to you. And if you can train for those conditions and on those other big points, let's call them tipping points, you can simulate those conditions of risk and danger and pressure. You can shock yourself into those same conditions and then trigger the training. You can also raise your game. It probably won't be as raised as under the external pressure, but still sufficient to win those tipping points. So the whole point of the training is to win more matches, particularly against the people that you narrowly lose to. And if you become more of a master at this at any level and any age, you could be winning quite comfortably against the people you win narrowly to. So big points is a skill, just like improving your serve is a skill. So you just need to know what is the training to repeat the training, and that becomes a skill that's honed. So that sets up a big point and a tipping point. And to learn, well, where do you learn this? And the obvious place is to, well, where are the elite trained for? And they have to raise their game and perform, because for them, and it sounds crass, but it is true, winning or losing isn't winning or losing, it's life or death, and there's no action replay. So we did look at the HM forces, particularly the SAS. We did look at the RAF within the services, and particularly the Top Gun fighter pilots. Mm-hmm. And we did look at extreme sports athletes who probably as a single genre have done most to stretch the envelope as to what is possible for human beings over the last 10 years. And if you think about it, on their snow, rock and ice, they come against circumstances that they can't train for, that are absolutely ginormous, and they have to raise their game. And for each of the three, and this is probably more of the subject of today, we've taken the best from the best. So the SAS in a hostage siege situation are amazing at drills, breaking them down into skills, sequence of skills, and knitting them all together. So we've taken that, and principally your domain, Thomas, of situations, drills, shots, sequence of shots on big points. The Top Gun fighter pilots are amazing at visualization and do what they call armchair flying. So they intuitively, because they just look at Top Gun fighter pilots, the speed that these planes are going at, there is no time to think, and there is no time to think mechanically. You're done. So everything needs to be A, your drills, and B, honed to such an extent that it's intuitive. So intuitive is quick, mechanical is slow. And then thirdly, from extreme sports athletes, what they have done better than anybody else is create a process to trigger being in the zone, which until then was hit or miss. So if we bring those three components plus more into the training and put a process and a training program behind it, then it's something that anybody, regardless of age, sex, and ability level, can do, provided they have the desire, the will, the want to be a winner rather than an also-ran. So that's where we got it all from. So now comes parts of the training, and clearly somebody like Djokovic and Murray and Federer have learnt this through 30 odd years of their training. And even they probably will not be able to break down, this is what we do. It's just become to them. And it's come to them probably by learning from their wins as well as learning from their losses. And inch by inch, incrementally by incrementally over the years, they come up with something that works for them. But what we have been able to do with your good assistance is to look at the training regimes of SAS, Top Gun Fighter Pilots, extreme sports athletes, and re-engineer and break them down and repurpose it for tennis. So I think the first thing to say is there is no magic pill. And there are 3 distinct levels of training that need to be brought together at the same time. So one is in the area of preparation. And we preface it by saying it's quite straightforward to learn how to be a winner rather than world class. You just need to model who winners are as a human being and what winners do, and therefore you'll have what the being and the doing does. And there are, I think, 4 components, and I'm going to slip through 3 and just concentrate on one because it's something that's not taught anywhere else. So to start with, you need to have some goals, because goals then decide the integrity of the training program to meet the goals. And then from that, there's training on the commitment to commit to the training to achieve the goals. And that's a fundamental part of a big point player, is knowing that you've done the hard yards and the work. So you just feel belief you've done the work when you step on court. But the 4th part of this preparation training is to do with language. And this get the heart, the anchoring of the science of big point players comes way back in caveman times, when we are wired as human beings under conditions of risk and danger and so-called pressure to either fight at the very best you can, or there will be a flight or freeze. And that's what happens to us at big points. We are, without going too technical right now, we are flooded with the hypothalamus area of the brain, and that does 2 things. It sends out a sequence of nerves cascading through your body and brain, so all senses are open and wired, and you can see this in caveman times. You are up for the fight. And it also sends out chemicals through your body like cortisone, adrenaline, noradrenaline, that floods more oxygenated blood to your muscles, so more energy and speed. So you can see you're primed to fight if you know it's happening and you know how to harness it. Yes. If you don't know it's happening, you will be in overwhelm and you will underperform and either freeze or flight. So it's important to know that that happens through your system, and there's nothing you can do about it, and you're shoved to a very abnormal operational condition. But the good news, as we just really said, is that at that condition, you are given superpowers. Your nerves are heightened. There is more energy. You can see things in slow time. Everything's easy. You can step up. So that's the basis of our training. So with why language comes into it is that there is a little phrase that says word creates world. And whatever you say, you're right. If you can, you can. If you can't, you can't. So under these circumstances, risk, danger, and pressure will occur to you. So it's not the truth. It will occur to you as either fear or at the opposite end of the continuum, excitement. And clearly there are levels going between fear and excitement. So a big point player genuinely is excited. And why wouldn't you be excited if you knew your brain and body has given you everything you need to step up to the plate and be awesome? Of course you'd be excited. So that's the first part. Now, fear equates to flight or freeze, and excitement equates to fight. And then flight or freeze relates to choker, and fight relates to big point player. And between those two ends, you've got anxious, nervous, cautious, confidence, and big point player. So wherever you are in the continuum, you can go towards excitement, fight, and big point player. And much of it is determined by, firstly, language, because what occurring is not fact. What the fact is risk and danger and pressure and abnormal circumstance. And the story you tell yourself is whatever you tell yourself. So clearly there is some training that underpins that. And part of the training is the performance of goal setting, the work plan with integrity and the commitment to do it, and done the hard yards, and you've proven yourself, you have evidence that backs up we are a risk seeker rather than a risk avoider. And you can train yourself off court. In fact, for this part of the training, much of it is trained off court, because who you are off court is who you bring on court. And you can bring yourself as an imposter and cover up and be but come pressure, real you, unfortunately, is revealed. And the imposter will lead you down to defeat just when you need to be victorious. So that is one level. Anything you want to ask, question from that? Is this babble stuff, or does it make sense?
No, it does make sense. I'm perfectly aware of what you're talking about. So maybe just to clarify one idea when it comes to, like you're saying, fear or excitement, is that, from my point of view, the excitement comes from seeing the opportunity of getting something, of winning or something like that. And so you are more aware of the positive side, whereas the fear comes from being focused on the negative side. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And there are different types of excitement. So you can be the cold, hard assassin, but it's still your moment, your time. One shot, one bullet, boff. And then right at the other end of the excitement is the more, Italian, up for it, loud and aggressive. And I think you just need to suit whatever your personality is.
Yes. And there's also overexcitement. So we must be careful not to.
Yes. Overexcitement probably comes into bravado.
Yes.
Which is not confidence, as we know. It's bravado and is wafer thin.
Yes.
And people that are trained, you, I, and many others, can smell from the other side of the court whether there's fear going on or excitement. Do I have a battle going on here, or is it quite comfortable? And it's well worth, I wasn't going to say it, but it's well worth saying at this time, under big points or tipping points, we tend to only focus on ourselves, our own thoughts, feelings, and emotions. We never consider that at the same time with your opponent or opponents in doubles, they have their own voice in their head that pops up.
Yes.
Haven't really spoken to the voice in the head during the match, but just under pressure, up it comes, shouting at you. So they have their own thoughts going on as well, and we never consider that. So let's just say at big points, instead of being two people on court, there are now four. You and your voice in your head, them with their voice in your head. And if you've got control and they haven't, that's a great thing to think about if you're trained.
Exactly.
You already go, I've got an advantage here.
All right, exactly.
So we're going, thank you for your question, but I went off on a passionate tangent. Yeah. But there are many things to say, as I say, for 30 odd years of training, condense it into 15 to 30 minutes. So that's the first thing. You step onto court with belief and excitement of knowing when it comes, you're up for it and you're trained. And you've got evidence to back it up. The second part of the training is, okay, well, how do we trigger that? And there are 25 seconds between the point breaking down and the next point starting. And big point players have a sequence they enact. And the better you are, the more often you enact the sequence. It's like we say when you're playing tennis, to play tennis, look at the ball on the strings. It's a very simple thing to say, but only the elite watch it onto the strings. Everybody else looks away before contact. So what I'm about to say is also very simple, but only the elite big point players enact it every single point. So we talk about play every point as a point, but nobody does, apart from the big point players playing every point as though it was match point. So just look at that mentality. We're not playing 2 or 3 sets. We're not playing a few games. We're not playing 40 love. We're playing every point as though our life depended upon it in this process. Well, how amazing would that be? What would it be like if you looked across the net at Djokovic when you shook hands and you went, oh my God, every single point I'm going to have to chip out of granite?
Yes.
So they have a 25-second routine. Maria Sharapova, I think, is the most obvious one, who takes the full. Most people take the full 25 seconds. Only competitive amateur tennis players amble from one point to the baseline and start again. It might take 5 seconds. So Sharapova and the others have a routine that they do every 25 seconds. And crudely, because I want to concentrate on one particular thing, is the first thing they have to do is to release everything. And they can normally do that by taking one deep breath, holding it for a few seconds, slowly letting it out. And that gets them, if they're trained, to nothing. No thinking. Whatever happened in the past is gone. Nice and relaxed. Oh. Second thing to do is then think about how the next shot is going to be played out. Now, we just tend to think, I must win this point. It's a big point. I've got to win this point. I mustn't lose this point. But they have clarity of thought that says, over the next 5 or 7 seconds, how is this point going to be played out, freeze frame by freeze frame, based on my success on the practice court? That's a different level of focus. And the third thing, which is what I want to concentrate on really, is how to trigger yourself to be in the zone, or what's known as flow. And that we learn from extreme athletes. And the place, we know what the place is because everything is easy. The ball is slow, looks like a big balloon. All the mathematical geometry calculations that we do on court are there in front of us, easy peasy, and we can play our best. So imagine that we can train for this and trigger it. Probably can't trigger it each and every time. And there are a few circumstances that allow us to trigger it. So firstly, and we'll be pleased to know, the best access to being in the zone is risk and danger and pressure. That is like just a white water cascade into that area. Creativity is another. And you'll see, and knowing exactly what you're going to do, called difference between clarity and focus. So when we just do clarity, as I've just described, freeze frame by freeze frame, it does a number of things at big points. One is that there is no past and there is no future. You're in the now. And secondly, it automatically gets rid of self. So the more the brain is concentrated on what am I going to do, what's the arc of my trajectory of shot, where is it going to bounce, like in your first or second serve, the more the brain loves it and gets rid of past and future and gets rid of the voice in your head called self. So if we can do those things and trigger it, and you'll see athletes either pick the strings of their racket, or Nadal, picks the strings at the back of his jockstrap. Djokovic bounces the ball 20 odd times. They're triggering themselves to go the best that they can and be in the zone. That's enough that we can talk about today. There is more in the training. So that's the second level. We have belief and knowledge when we step on court, and we've done our 25-second routine to be mentally, tactically, and technically up for the action. Any questions, insights, comments, own thoughts on that?
You're very comprehensive. It's very tough to add something to this. Yeah, it's a complex process that needs to be broken down and trained in parts. Otherwise, the person might just get overwhelmed with everything.
They will.
And so that's the part of the training that we do in the Gladiator Tennis.
So you can see it's a skill, and you can also see why nobody's trained it before, because I think in the past, either they think winners are born, not bred, or you have to suffer from your narrow losses and agony over many years,
Yes.
thinking each time, what would I do differently, and learn from those cuts.
Yes.
I think that's it, truth from the past. So just imagine you can break down what the elite do into a sequence of training and learn from your victories.
Yes.
Yeah. You have to excuse my passion. That's just how it is. So the third part of the training, which really is your domain, which we learn from the SAS, is what's the match situation? How can we create a drill to replicate entirely that match situation, including the pressure and the feelings and tactics? How can we break down that drill into shot and sequence of shots? And then regardless of age, sex and capability level, hone it so that you go from, if you like, an enthusiastic beginner to having mastery. So once you have mastery, and including mastery of levels 1 and 2, now you can enact on autopilot without thinking and step up to the plate at big points. No longer are you doing your best reactive and spontaneous. Now you're dictating play on autopilot with sequences you trust.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so on the last bit, the 5 match situations, drills, and breaking down into shots and sequence of shots, we have, led by yourself, each day 5 of the big points at match situations that you can face. They probably cover 80% of the situations, and how you can practice them and roll them out at will. Come on, I'm trying to be neutral and unbiased, but it sounds awesome to me.
Yes.
Just that. So those are the 3 levels. I just want to finish with a quote. Because when we boil all this training down, to me right now, it comes down to one word, which is audacious, which is about the boldness of taking risks. And it's not a stupid risk or even a calculated risk. It is audaciousness and boldness because you've practiced it many times, as distinct from cautiousness of not making a mistake. I'm going to throw you a little curveball now because I just am, but I know you can answer it. It's the difference on your shot of being bold and putting, if you like, more velocity, more on the ball, than the cautiousness, both of where you stand and where and how you place the ball so you don't make a mistake. Which has the highest risk, boldness or cautious?
If you play a good player, then being cautious is quite risky. And so you must know how to weigh the risks, that you understand there's a risk, the difference between the risk of your shot or the risk of losing the point. So let me rephrase, risk of missing the shot or risk of losing the point. Because when you're cautious, the risk of missing the shot is very low, but the risk of losing the point might be very high. And so therefore we need to be audacious in a way to overcome that first fear of missing the shot so that we find the right ratio of risks that is going to give us the highest percentage of wins.
Okay. I'm going to rephrase it. And this is harsh. So there's obviously a big difference about playing not to lose.
Exactly.
And playing to win.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch sports to something like the Ryder Cup in golf. There's a big difference about having a putt to save the hole and having the same putt to win the hole.
Or the tournament.
Or the tournament, yeah. Just talking about it, you go, yes.
Yes.
Yes. So boldness, and let's go back now just briefly to the SAS, Top Gun fighter pilots and extreme sports athletes. They are, seriously staring at death in the eyes. And at that moment of time, they really can't be thinking about the ifs, buts, and maybes. They can't be thinking about cautiousness and playing not to lose. It just doesn't enter their psyche.
Yeah.
They have to be bold. And it's not really a calculated risk because they've done it time and time and time again. So I would, answering my question of boldness and audaciousness has less risk than cautiousness and risk averse. And we can argue about it as part of the fun of sport and tennis. So just to finish off, two things to say, which is a normal gladiator phrases, which is repetition builds strength. Unless you've done the practice and the intense practice and put it into a match, you can't have belief. You don't have the foundations for it. So repetition builds strength, and that's mentally, tactically, in shots. The second thing is, at critical moments, do you rise to the occasion or fall to the level of your training? And if you have no training, clearly you're going to fall to it. And just to finish off, I'm going to read a quote, put my glasses on. And it comes from a person we studied a lot, Karl von Clausewitz, a great Prussian strategist, the father of military doctrine, says that never forget that no military leader has ever become great without audacity. If the leader / winner is filled with high ambition, if he pursues his aims with audacity and strength of will, he will reach them in spite of all obstacles. So that's my little analogy of war and battle and war on the court. So I think, Thomas, another tough question, but you're listening and I've been speaking. Can you think of 3 little takeaways that people could practice right now in their quest to go from choker to big point player? What are the 3 things that occur to you?
Yes, well, the one is that they become aware of the fear or their body being affected by the pressure, and that they recognize that something is going on, and that they actually have a choice whether they lean towards freeze or flight, or they can lean towards fight because their body is primed for fight.
Choice is a great word. It is
Yes.
a choice.
So the first one is this awareness that something is going on, and that you can lead your body and your mind towards the fight path. And then the second one is that you're aware of the 25-second that you have between the points, which is where you need to clear your mind from the previous point and prepare your mind for the next point. And then this is also the entrance to the zone, so that you're able to play tennis with a clear mind, although you have an intention, but you must have an intention. What is your plan in the next point? But you can play with a clear mind that nothing distracts you. And so you're looking to find the entrance to the zone. And so you do that, you become better at this by observing what's going on in your mind, whether there's a change of mind, whether you're doubting your decisions, and so on. And so as you're becoming more aware of it, you realize that as you're getting distracted, changing your mind, the outcome is not good. And when you are clear in your decision, the outcome is usually good.
Okay. Clarity of thought is my phrase there.
Clarity of thought.
And then the
anything
drills.
else you want to add, Mark?
No, your drills, which we will come to each and every day. So you can just see there's another little quote that says, it's again a principle of war, that you have to bring maximum power to bear at critical moments. So in war, it's different types of power. In our level, we've got 1 level of power, 2 levels of power, 3 levels of power, and we bring them together at critical moments for maximum decisive breakthrough. So that's great. Thomas, thank you. I hope everybody listening, plus seeing the clips, has got something out of it. two things for you if the conversation is enjoyable. One is, please join with us on the webinar just before the men's US Open final, when all our experts will be present. All the training drills will be brought to bear, and we'll look at the US Open as it's a close match and who we think will become the big point player and have the ecstasy, not the agony, who will have the tears of joy rather than the whimpering tears of defeat. And at that time, all your questions, the panel, you can put to the panel and they'll be answered. So if you've got any real, that you have patterns of behavior that occur to make you seize defeat from the jaws of victory, ask them to the panel. You'll get some great insights. And lastly, we can only do so much on these Grand Slam tennis lessons. If you really want to be trained and have access to the training and the drills, then register for the 5-week Gladiator Big Point Player training, which will be launched shortly. Thank you very much. Thank you, Thomas, for the introduction and all your questions.
It was a pleasure.